Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. I don't know, better late than never. That's what I'm going with today. Normally coming your way at 2 o'clock on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then after every Michigan football and basketball game. But today I had to go down to Ann Arbor. There was some football availability, and I thought, let's get down there and see what's happening. And you just never know what can happen down in Ann Arbor, talking to Michigan football players. And to be honest, I was thinking, I'm pretty hyped up and excited about the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament, Michigan being a part of it. And that's where we're going to start. That's what we're going to talk about. But then football is always on everyone's mind. And I was thinking, what am I talking about today? I had some things to look at, but I didn't just didn't really feel it about Michigan football. I just feel like I'm recycling something. Am I going to say anything that's going to have the people, jacked up and fired up? Can I entertain them about what's going on? I wasn't 100% feeling it. And then I went down and there were 3 players that came out today, 2 running backs and a defensive end. And Jordan Marshall, the running back from Cincinnati, he was there and he spoke. And then Derrick Moore took center stage and talked for over 10 minutes. And then the newcomer, the running back that transferred from Alabama, Justice Haynes, was there as well. And all 3 of those guys, boy, they really brought it. They really brought it. They really, I think that everybody that's there, you had to be fired up after you left there. After you walked out, you had to say, man, these guys, not quite what you say open books, but man, they were talking about practice. They were talking about their teammates. They were talking about all the kind of things that if you're a Michigan football fan, that you'd be interested in. So I was, especially Bryce Underwood. I came away, a lot of Bryce Underwood questions, and a lot of the guys are kind of like, yeah, Bryce Underwood, coaches too. Yeah, Bryce Underwood. But these 3 guys, all when it came down to Bryce Underwood, you could sense it, you could feel it, you could see it, you could tell by the way they talked about Bryce Underwood that if you weren't, and I don't know, maybe you're a wait and see, and you're not going to get too excited. It's only March, not even April yet. Let's wait a little while. If you weren't all fired up, I think now you should be. Just by these guys today, that's the feel. Be interesting to see. There's only, maybe 11, 12 total media members that were there. Be interesting to see. I didn't talk to anybody afterwards, but woo, man. And I'll give you that coming up. Plus, with the assembled media that was there, I asked all the people that I could the simple question if they thought Underwood was going to start from game 1, and I'll reveal those that, whatever you want to call it, informal poll, formal poll coming up here in about 10, 15 minutes after we talk about basketball and what's going on here. So to make sure I'm looking, see if we're rocking and rolling or not. And I believe we are. Somebody send a message, say, hey, let's go. What's going on with the show? Yeah, here it is. It's live. I don't know. I didn't see the counter or anything, and now I do. Now I see it all. It's all good. Now, for a second, I thought, am I just sitting here staring at a blank screen and nobody's able to watch? Am I going to be able to recreate the enthusiasm that I started out here with? Well, I would have had to, but good news is I don't have to. So yeah, football in about 10 minutes from now, but we start talking about basketball in Michigan to get to this point. The Friday is perfect if you're a basketball fan. You get in this area, and if you're somebody that's, I guess you don't even have to be in Southeast Michigan, but you have the JV game, you have Michigan State tipping off early, and then you have the Michigan coming in at the nightcap, bringing the hammer. And I admit, it is a late start, and maybe you'll have to get a nap or something else, or maybe you just like going out and getting involved watching this game in a setting with a bunch of college basketball fans into the night, where it's going to be a raucous event wherever you're at, man, and it's going to just bring the atmosphere and the vibe that you're looking for. Or, I'm not going to be going out myself. I'm going to try to recreate all of that by watching the games, but just for the area, to have the local teams, Southeast Michigan, to have the local teams and what it can do for the community, and how I've just talked with my own friends, and I could just tell that little buzz, like, oh yeah, where do you think? Where are we going? What's this? We got to get there. You got 5-6 hours of basketball to entertain you on a Friday night, and that's great. Now, about Michigan's chances on Friday and their chances in advancing. However you like to look at it, maybe you're just like, nah, I'm all good. It doesn't really matter. That's fine. That's fine. I was listening to, who was it? Rebecca Lobo. She was talking women's basketball because Juju Watkins went down and tore up her knee, which really sucked. I mean, she's one of the name players on the women's side, and she's going to be matching up with Beckers, possibly with USC, two like real heavyweights in the women's game. That was really something to look forward to. And Watkins is out, and you hope for speedy recovery. But Lobo was talking about all that, and she said Watkins would give anything to play in this tournament, to play in these games where you make, and she was just going on about, you make your name for yourself and your school in March, and you just give anything to get out there and play in one of these games. And here's Michigan with a chance to advance one of the 16 teams and get to the Elite Eight. And oh yeah, sitting over on the other side, and Michigan State is looming, and we'll know by tip-off if Michigan would get the W that they would take on Michigan State. I don't think it would affect them, but for everyone else, probably. Tom Izzo, he's rooting for Michigan. Oh yeah, no kidding, Tom. I bet you are, after you had beat them twice. If you ask me about Friday's game, and Michigan's what, a 7.5 point underdog, so you know how to fit that into however your expectations are before tip-off. Maybe it doesn't matter at all to you. Maybe you think, okay, this is going to be quite a task to pull the upset at 7.5 and against a team that's the overall number one seed in the tournament, a team that's got a superstar, certainly an All-American in Broome, and then a bunch of senior guards, and they're deep and talented. You say, hey, this is going to really be a tall task. I would agree with that. And yet this is the specialness of March Madness. If there's been something to talk about up to this point, people are weighing in and saying, yeah, this is the NIL, and the transfer portal has really taken effect this year. You see it with the teams generally that were your mid-majors that would have a senior-laden team, maybe not necessarily a superstar, but these guys were 21, 22 years old. They'd played together for 4 or 5 years. They win their league, and then they're ready to make a big splash, and you see it every year. We did not really see that this year. It was a very chalky bracket. It's something that we're not accustomed to, and I admit that's what it looks like. It looks like that you've been robbed. We've been robbed of that Cinderella aspect of March Madness. I don't, however, feel like there needs to be whoever gets involved to make a bunch of rash choices. Oh, well, let's let everybody in now, or let's expand, or whatever. I think that's what they're trying to do, anyways. But using this is like, oh yeah, definitely have to expand now. It's 1 year, and if we go, let's say 3 years, and it feels like this year, well, what they can do to get the mid majors, and well, what they can do is if they have their collective bargaining agreement set and everybody knows the rules with those other schools, and it could be something that how you tweak it to help the lesser thans. I'm not really sure, but I'm not going to panic after 1 year when it comes down to that. But getting back to Michigan, I think that if this was the NBA and this was a 7-game series, I would pick Auburn in 6. It's not a 7-game series, and Auburn in 6 means Michigan wins 2 times. And Michigan, this is not although it's hour 40 minutes from Auburn, Alabama to Atlanta, and that's a pretty short drive there for the Tigers fans. So how many Michigan fans can actually get down there and make it where it's not 80% Tigers fans? That's how it feels, because it's just a short drive for them. Anything they can get to make it 70 or 60%, that would be a big deal. But we just saw it last game. Nobody had Roddy Gale going off for 26 points. And in Michigan, you get this far, could Area 51 really have this 4-5 screen and roll where the Wolf of State Street is fighting Vlad Golden, and Vlad Golden is getting Johnny Broom and the other bigs for the Tigers in foul trouble, and then Trey Donaldson, the former Tiger, is playing his best basketball? I mean, there is a path for Michigan to win this game. And so while I would pick Auburn in 6 if it was a 7-game series, I'm going to play my March Madness card. And there haven't been really major upsets, but you see them. You see them all the time. And I'm going to play the Michigan March Madness card, and they've gotten hot. And I don't think that they've played their best game as a team where everyone has. And can Michigan bring their A game on Friday and Auburn just a B game? And that would have Michigan with an excellent chance then at advancing. I'm going to say, yeah, I think that's the path. That's the way to do it. And it certainly can happen. And for me with sports, it's so much of, if I just focus on, well, if it's either a championship or I'm going to be upset and I am just going to be bitter about everything else, that's a tough way to live. If you're that kind of sports fan, just a championship. I try to, whatever I can, to have a good time and enjoy myself up to the spot where the game goes on, and then enjoy the game too. That's where I'm at right now. Play the March Madness card, enjoy the game, and get ready for it all coming up on Saturday. That is how I feel. That's where I'm at with it, coming your way here on this Wednesday, the 26th. All right, let's see. All right, I had to check that out. I was looking to see where the comments were coming in, and I haven't seen them. Normally I ask for them, but again, we got a half hour coming at you a little bit later, so they're not necessarily there, and that's okay. So we move on to football. And before I give you what I was going to say about football today, I encourage everyone that wants to know the latest on Michigan football, Michigan basketball, Michigan sports, recruiting, spring updates, all that kind of stuff. You just want more Michigan coverage quicker. Well, the way to do it is joining up with us at the Maize and Blue Review. You do that by going to michigan.rivals.com, joining up, and the party starts, and you get it going that way. So good luck. Look forward to seeing you over on the Den, which is a posting board community that is a lot of fun. I'm over there all day, all night, talking about 98% Michigan sports and 2% other stuff. Okay, so 3 Michigan football players were made available today. Jordan Marshall was the first, the sophomore running back. And remember, Marshall came out and had the big game in the ReliaQuest Bowl, had 23 carries, 100 yards, over 4 per tote, 4.3 yards per carry. And it was pretty impressive. And if you were looking for, you'd say, I like the quintessential Michigan man. That's Jordan Marshall. If Jim Scarcelli, who joins us normally on Mondays, would have heard Jordan Marshall today, he would have walked out of there and said, you know what? Marshall's exactly what you want in a Michigan football player. This is a team guy. He's a team first. He's a running back room guy. He's everything that you would want a football player to say about his team, about his university, about his position, and everything that is involving the team. You would say, give me 105 Jordan Marshalls. Look, he gets it through and through. Everything that you would want someone to say. He connects. He's that kind of guy, that kind of back. And the thing that he wants a natty. He knows what Michigan they're going to do in terms of their offense and then running the ball and everything. But I didn't go back. I wanted to get on here, and so I'm just going to go off of while I was standing there and listening to these guys talk. So I might not have the exact quotes when it comes down to it, but Marshall was asked about Bryce Underwood, and Marshall came out and said that he goes back to the bowl practices when he first saw Underwood and he came in and everybody knew about the fanfare. And he was impressed that Underwood just came in unassuming, head down, and just worked at it. And he would just be with the quarterback rooms. He wasn't, showing out or anything else. He was just acclimating and kept his head down. He said that a couple of times and worked. He said now he carries himself when he is out there. He has an aura. He has a swagger to him. And you're a fan of Michigan, and these are the kind of things like you just stood back and you say, oh, you really like Bryce Underwood, and he's got a swag to him, and you're impressed with everything he's able to do, and you could see it in his eyes, and you could hear it the way he was talking about Bryce Underwood. The next player that came up was Derrick Moore. Derrick Moore, who had the great ReliaQuest Bowl, had Jalen Milroe stopped the first series on downs, involved the next series. There was a fumble, then there was an interception, and then another fumble. It was the first 4, and Michigan flipped the game. It was rated. Next thing you know, Michigan's, you think they're going to win it after the first quarter when nobody thought they did. And Moore was a big part of that. Really, the whole defense that with the guys that were sitting out, and the majority, almost all of the guys, except Amir Hall, did come up with a strip there in the first quarter in that ReliaQuest Bowl. Pretty much all of the other guys are back there, and that makes the whole defense, they keep getting asked about it. Like, yeah, they felt pretty good about that. And that was really they felt good about actually the last 3 games. And then, of course, the bowl game where it was the majority of the guys that are coming back. And the thing that I like about Derrick Moore is that, he's an excellent football player. I think we can all see that. I'm going to tell you, as someone who you would like to talk with, someone you would like to hear from as a football player and an athlete in a world, not just Michigan, but a lot where it's just a, cliche ridden, not very interesting. Like, okay, that is the exact opposite of what Derrick Moore brings to the table. I've listened to a lot of coaches and a lot of players over my lifetime, and Moore is the perfect person to interview. I like his style. You ask him a question, it doesn't even have to be a great question, but he gets it and he understands with giving you, and I would say it's even a thoughtful answer, entertaining answer. It's usually all of those, and he just knows how to bring it. He knows how to bring it on the field, and he knows how to bring it when you ask him a question. And you asked him about Bryce Underwood, and right off the bat, he said something like, yeah, I get asked about Bryce Underwood an awful lot. He said, I don't really know what to say, but, he did know what to say. Because after he said he didn't really know what to say, and then he gets asked a lot about Bryce Underwood, he said, what I'm really impressed with is just how he's able to throw the football. I'm impressed with his accuracy. For a guy that's 6'4" and just out there as a true freshman in spring, he is putting the ball on the money. He said that's what stands out to him. And he said he's throwing dots. Now, you can say, well, what's that mean? It's good. When someone says that a quarterback is throwing dots, that's good from your quarterback. I guess it's like you would walk up to a receiver and put a single dot on him and then tell the quarterback to throw the ball there, and he zips it there with the accuracy. Boom! He's throwing dots. So that was something with Derrick Moore that I really liked hearing. 23 Tails is jumping in and talking about being humble and controlled aggression. A dead focus is what he is hearing. Controlled aggression, is that Derrick Moore? Or is that, I don't know. Is that, I was talking about what Derrick Moore had to say, but you might be talking about Bryce Underwood. I'm not sure at the quarterback position if you have a controlled aggression with quarterback, but also going off my memory of what Moore just had to say about an hour ago when it came to Underwood. He said, yeah, the way he was throwing the ball and everything. He said, and then he broke out running. And you could also tell that he was like, oh, he didn't say he's just, he's not just a pocket passer, but you could say, or you could tell with the way that he was talking about him that, oh, he can move around and, he can be pretty effective with his legs as well. But after I hear Jordan Marshall talking about Underwood, and after I hear Derrick Moore talking about Underwood, that was going to be enough for me. I thought, these two guys, you don't normally hear that, the effusive praise for players and all that. But then these guys were both Moore and Marshall talking about the newcomer from Alabama, Justice Haynes. And they said, "What do you get a load of this guy?" Moore was like, he'll be in the weight room and he'll be with the running backs. And he'll just come over with the defensive lineman and he'll be like, "What do you guys?" And he'll just start whatever they're doing, squatting and everything else. And so my impression of Haynes is that he is on a regiment like no other, or if it's any other, it's the top 1% of pro football players and what they're doing. I don't know. I've got my watch that gives me a lot of different info when I'm working out and everything else. I'm not comparing myself with a finely tuned athlete, but when I was looking and they were talking about Haynes, it's like, oh, he records everything, his sleep, his biorhythms, all these different things. And so I looked, and he didn't have a watch on, and I thought, well, how's he doing that? Well, then he had a ring. I don't know what the ring, whatever the ring is, because at one point he was talking about how, he's very meticulous, and where he's getting his rest, and how he's eating, and what he eats, and everything else. But then he pointed to, he's like, yeah, and then I've got the ring. And I was like, ooh, the ring. What's up with that ring? Well, the ring, a little bit like your watch. It's giving you a lot of data. And so he's big into those data points, loves the weight room, loves the practice. And you look at Haynes, and he is, comparing guys to Saquon Barkley is a pretty, but physically, Saquon Barkley's, legs are tree trunks, and he's built like a linebacker. Haynes, to me, he gave me a little bit of the Saquon vibes, just taking a look at him. Not that he looked like him feature-wise, but just physically. I mean, he is built like a brick-ass house sitting there. And, he loves squatting, and he's doing everything he can. And you could hear with how they were talking about the running back room that you've got two guys here in Marshall and Haynes that are 1 and 1A when it comes down to this running back room. If you wanted to make a case that Haynes was going to be the starter and that he was going to get the majority of carries, I'd say, that wouldn't surprise me. If you came back and said, oh no, Marshall, he's going to be the workhorse, that wouldn't surprise me either. It's a good thing to have. Now, look, I haven't watched them. They've had 2 padded practices. And so a lot of this is just going off of what the players are saying. And you just get a feel for it. It's Haynes and Marshall in that running back room. But both of them, couldn't stop talking about their teammates and the guys in the position groups behind them. And Haynes, too, when he was asked about Underwood, he didn't say nothing. He was saying about how impressed he was as well. Now, I don't remember who, but the questions were about who are some of the other players that are jumping out and that are playing well. Derrick Moore did say Cam Brandt, and Cam Brandt came on late in the season, but that he likes Cam Brandt. You could see that. One of those running backs said, I think it was Marshall, McCulley is, and the question was, hey, who's jumping out? Who's flashing? And McCulley's name came up within a split second. McCulley is a wide receiver. And then they said Jamar. And I was like, okay, bro, Jamar, who's Browder, who last week the players were talking about. So this is now 2 weeks in a row. And certainly Sharon Moore mentioned Browder. He was asked about him high pointing the ball. And, the coach will temper the expectations a little bit and say, hey, look, we've had 1 padded practice. We're just 3 days in here. But yeah, he likes the size, and he was able to go up. But then these guys came out again. And here was Browder 2 weeks in a row. Enough where if I'm looking to establish a hype train after Bryce Underwood, I'm putting Browder's name on there. You don't have 2 weeks in a row where you come out and have the other players talking about you. Kid's a true freshman, and his name's coming up like that. Hey, who's impressive? Jamar Browder. Oh, and not just 1 catch. That sounds like more about catches. We'll take some of the feedback. I've got information on the spring game that you're not going to want to miss, and I'll give that after I go through some of the feedback. Scott is asking if Underwood is the best high school quarterback in the past 10 years. I don't know. I've got that poll as well that I have to get to. Just make sure I write these things down so I don't forget. Spring game and poll. Yeah, the thing about highly touted quarterbacks, so every year you have one or two. And so Quinn Ewers was a pretty highly touted quarterback. The one thing that about Underwood, and he's not like a unanimous number one. So Rivals didn't have him as the overall number one. So I looked at the top two quarterbacks that Rivals had over the year, and it's a pretty good hit rate. It's not 90% or something. Some of those guys like, ooh, I don't know about him. And in the last 2 or 3 years, you had to go back because guys haven't quite, although Raiola played immediately. But I'm not here selling you that let's wait and see, and that, there's a good chances that he's not going to be a superstar, that he's just going to be okay. I don't, there's no reason for me to be selling any of that. I think that from what we have seen and heard that, he's going to be the real deal. And until I see anything different, and you could throw a lot of different numbers and a lot of different players and a lot of different, I would just say, it's not a sure thing, but it's exactly what you want. And up to this point, there's no reason to say anything to try to cushion expectations or anything else. A little bit more on that coming up. Dave's is talking about best quarterback from since Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence was a great prospect. Trevor Lawrence was on the field pretty quick. Not immediately. They had a senior quarterback in Kelly, but Lawrence was out there, and then Lawrence was a great college quarterback. Scott's saying he's been good in the NFL, but not great. He's been mostly disappointing in the NFL, especially this past year. The year before, he was showing like maybe he was coming into his own. Sometimes you got to give a little time, and he's just been okay. I don't know, good. He wasn't good last year. He wasn't good his first year. He was good last year a little bit. So I would even say when it comes down to Lawrence, but I'm not. The situation that you get in, Jacksonville doesn't seem like a great one. We know that he had Urban Meyer when he was there that can stunt in a lot of teams and players' abilities with the way that he was talking about. It's good to hear from Vaughn as saying, maybe Vaughn likes the 2:30 starts. 23 asking a question about how many receivers, about 6'3" on the team. Well, you have to get a roster and look. Off the top of my head, let's see. I do know that Moore, so McCulley is 6'4", the transfer from Indiana. And then Morgan and Moore, they're not 6'3". And I don't think Shannon Goodwin or Marion Stewart are. So then Browder, I think, is 6'5", but Moore said not just the height, but the length. And then he mentioned Marsh. Marsh must have, because Marsh is listed, I think, at 6 feet tall. But then I think if you get to his length, it's like Allen Iverson was listed at 6'1", but he had a 6'7" wingspan. Kevin Durant was listed at 6'11", but he's got a 7'5" wingspan. So wingspan, height. So to answer your question, I think Browder and McCulley. But Marsh, when it comes to wingspan, might be the equal when it comes down to him. So that's where I'm at when it comes down to that. Okay, an update on the spring game. The spring game is it April the 19th? I can check, because if it's around that. The word is that it is not going to be live. Yeah, the 19th. It is not going to be shown live on the Big Ten Network, the Michigan spring game on the 19th. it is going to be tape delayed and likely shown not till a week later. There's some Michigan lacrosse or something that they want to get to on that Saturday. Look, I'm just giving you the information about what I was told. I asked, I asked someone, are you guys getting strong armed by the Big Ten Network for having some spring content, knowing how much money that the Big Ten Network has shelled out to their conference members to have these teams like, we're not going to be having any spring game like State. And there are a lot of people like, who cares? Nobody's, you may have gone to State. Those were the people that would watch it, but everybody else was saying, is the Michigan State spring game a must watch? No, but Ohio State, Michigan, maybe Oregon, maybe their spring game. So I wondered if the Big Ten Network was going to strong arm, and Sharon Moore on Monday was pretty adamant. You could tell that he was excited, at least as it sits right now, to have Michigan in a spring game. Talked about it being important to the fans. And so we'll take him at his word there, but then they are not showing the game live. This could help attendance. People have often said, I thought myself last year, coming off a national championship, that maybe Michigan would put 60, 70,000 in the stadium, and it wasn't even half that. And a little bit of a disappointment there. I don't know. Spring football. Not everybody is as dialed in and wired in on every single thing. It just shows you as excited as you might be about every little morsel of information. Football fans at large are kind of like, okay, just let me wait till August the 30th against New Mexico. Then we'll start watching. But probably a week later for the spring game. So that's what you're going to get. So if you thought, I'll just stay home and watch it, it'd be a lot easier. I know that was what Scar was saying. Scar likes the comfort of his own home with his recliner, and he can rewatch and rewind everything else. He doesn't have to make the long trip down to Ann Arbor for him, and then deal with the elements or whatever it's going to be, the unknown, and then have to make his way all the way back. But you can't do that this year because the spring game will not be live on the Big Ten Network. So adjust your plans accordingly. And if you're ever thinking about, hey, this might be a good time to head to a Michigan football spring game, this would be the year to do it. So that's it. How it's going to happen. I've got that poll that I want to release to you that I took myself today. 23 is saying if the spring game is shown a week later, content creators' views are going to rocket that go to the game and speak on it. We want to know what happened. Yes, you do. I would also say that Doug Karsh is probably smiling somewhere, knowing that he'll be doing a live radio broadcast, and that the 5 or 6 people that might listen to it now will go up to, maybe 50,000. I'm just kidding. There's probably more that listen to the spring game. In fact, last year when I was one of the 5, because I was listening to the guys as I was at the game. So, yeah, I don't know what they're going to say about if you're at the game and you're taking your own video, what's going to happen there. They can't do anything about that. I mean, again, here we are. This isn't bylaw 67.3 where maybe somebody from Michigan State and then using the practice footage or something else. I don't know. You can bring your own and post it on the internet. So there'll be a lot of that. There'll be a lot of detective work from Michigan fans like, ooh, here's the play everybody was talking about, Underwood throwing the ball 80 yards. Let's check it out. And we'll see if that. Yeah, you need somebody like Stallions to be able to stream this thing. Well, there you go. Connor Stallions, let's check out his Twitter feed during the game. He'll have it. Everybody like, hey, Connor, we love him. I heard so. I got down to Michigan where the players are going to be interviewed today. And I was asking the assembled media an easy question. when they walked in. I said, hey, do you think Bryce Underwood will start from game one? Yes or no? And I polled 10 different folks that were there, including the 2 representatives from the Michigan Daily. And out of the 10 people that were asked, 3 said that they thought that Underwood would start immediately. The other 7 did not think so. Did not think so. Now, somebody mentioned Stallions. You know, Stallions was at Belleville. And apparently, Stallions told someone that Underwood, as a high school senior, with his familiarity with reads and being able to digest a playbook and knowing where to go with the ball, he was as good as J.J. McCarthy in his sophomore season. So you're already talking about, something like, so I don't know, that's 3 years. That's high praise from what was happening there. Somebody else said that in terms of reading a defense and throwing the ball, it's a little bit different going up against Ohio State than it is Northville. And, and I get that. And that's, and a lot of people are like, we don't know. How are we supposed to know anything? We're sitting here. We're just like everybody else. We're not in there at the practice. They don't have that luxury. So everybody was just guessing. And so you understand being on the safe side. And originally I was myself, I would say, on the safe side, saying, Michigan plays New Mexico, Oklahoma, CMU, Nebraska. Then they have a bye week after week 4, and then they play Wisconsin. It seemed like an easy spot to say after the bye week, that's where you get Underwood in. And he would start week 5, week 6 of the college football season, coming off the bye at home against Wisconsin. But the more I started thinking about how the season would play out, and at the same time, Underwood being on a national radio show and talking confidently like he was, I just felt, sure, I could probably get a couple snaps against New Mexico. New Mexico might be the worst college football team in 2025. Michigan should win that game. Michigan will be favored by 40 points. So they should win that game 45-3. So yeah, starting or not, we're going to see Bryce Underwood in that opener. I would bet everything that I had that he was going to see some snaps in that game. But what about game number 2? If it really is Mikey Keene, are you going to have a plan to play Bryce Underwood against Oklahoma? I'm not for that myself. You might say, yeah, well, no, that's not a good idea. Not a good idea. So whoever the quarterback is for Oklahoma, you're going to want to give him all the experience you can and all the snaps that you can in game 1. So, you're going to see a little bit of, if Keene's the guy named to start, you're going to see a little bit of Underwood in game 1 and some mop-up duty. Yay! I mean, okay, it'll be exciting, but I don't expect them to see him taking any snaps in Oklahoma. I'd be against that at Oklahoma. I don't like playing 2 quarterbacks. I don't like the idea. It didn't work with J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, however you want to put the list of why Michigan lost to Michigan State in that 2021 season, McCarthy's somewhere up there pretty high. That exchange that they ended up fumbling. And then he coughed another one up. Playing the 2 quarterbacks there, you can say harsh or not. That's the way I felt about it. I didn't like it when McCarthy was doing it. So I'm not going to like it with Underwood. So, okay, you can get him some snaps against CMU. But the next week, you're heading to Nebraska to start out the Big Ten season. Is that really how you want to roll? Playing both, eagle, not really. I don't think you can do that. So that's why I think Michigan hopes that Underwood just seizes the job and you can start him right out of the gate from game 1, and then you just go from there. And that's how it's going to be. or else you're going to get this looking over your shoulder, the fans wanting to see him in there. Why can't he play against Oklahoma? If you do play him, you got people like me saying that's not a good idea. We've got a long litany of quarterback rooms where you're playing two, where it backfires. Go with the one guy until the game is over and you want to get some guy experience. That's how I believe the quarterback room should be run. Now, look, I know there's other people that disagree with that, and you got to play them because they're, their recruiting status and those sort of things, what promises that you made. But it's not a good situation for that, unless you're forced in it, and then you have to deal with it. Like if there's an injury, then you have to end up playing one, obviously. So that's how I see. So that's where I'm at. Okay, I have emptied the bucket today. If you got a question coming up here, go ahead and throw it my way. Ferris is saying very serious allegations against Matt Weiss right now. What do you think the liability for Harbaugh, the football program, the AD, and the president? Well, that's a good question. I don't know about the liability part. You have insurance for that if you're going to have the athletes sue. So I think that's the liability for the university, if that's a possibility. I don't know about the legal status of that and the actual athletes that were affected by this, if they will be able to turn around and then sue the university. Maybe they will. But the liability for Jim Harbaugh, if you hire someone and you don't know what they're doing behind closed doors, even if they're representing Michigan, and I know he was at Schembechler Hall doing some of these hacking things, which are, not hacking things, what we know that he's been alleged to do. What I do think in terms of liability, it gives the football program, not that it should affect how the NCAA is looking at Connor Stallions or how the NCAA looked at the Burgergate situation, but they can do anything they want. That's why it's hard to predict when it comes down to the NCAA. The NCAA, because they do look, when it comes down to Stallions, they do look at what just happened with Burgergate, and they say, well, this is a multi-time offender. And then how will they deal with this? They say, hey, we can hit them here because they can't really do anything else. Maybe they would do that. So on one side, I would say it's separate. You don't know, and you let, as soon as they found things out, they dealt with it and turned it over to the proper authorities. But we're also dealing with then human beings that are on this infractions committee that they can do whatever they want. And it's tough to predict. I hear a lot of people wanting to predict, oh, well, they've never done that. Well, I don't know. The year before in 2023, I was standing myself on I've never seen the coach get suspended during the season. So I'm not expecting Jim Harbaugh to get suspended at all. I said that about 25 times, and then he gets suspended. So I don't know when it comes down to all of that and what the liability is going to be. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. 23T talking about first game, play them by halves or interchange every couple series. That's a recipe for disaster. I say, well, what about if you're preparing to go on the road against Oklahoma? I want that starter to have a full complement of snaps in the big house with his team. You don't take snaps away because you want to freshen up and give these. No, that's what fall camp is for. That's what spring is for. You can get these guys and rotate them in the series, and you want to have some scrimmages. You play them at halves. The season, you play around like this. Seen it too many times. Cut from a different cloth, talking about stuff that I was saying. I mean, how's Michigan supposed to be responsible? Joseph, how many games does Michigan win this year? I have them winning right now 10. I'm going to go with 10 wins, which I believe will get them into the college football playoff. I think they're going to beat Ohio State. And so those two other losses, I don't know, Nebraska. Dave is talking about some of the same stuff that I was talking about. Cut from a different cloth is in agreement. Bryce Underwood will be starting quarterback game 1. I agree. Have a starter, but we know fans are going to be calling for Underwood. Well, you can't worry about the fans. But if the idea is, well, after a month, he'll just be ready then. If that, and that's kind of what I was thinking originally, but in part of it, I already thought prior to today that it's going to be Underwood from game 1. And then just listen to the players today. The way that he's carrying himself, the way he's throwing around the ball, you could tell how impressed they were. All three of them. All three of these guys, you could tell, were impressed with Underwood. I'm just expecting him to start. I don't think that they'll name a starter after spring. You don't want to do that. You don't want your quarterback just taking off. But they'll know, and I think we'll all know as well. And that might be the worst kept secret as things move on into the summer and the fall camp. And I think he'll be the starter on August the 30th against New Mexico. That's how I have felt, and that's how I feel again today after all of that. Thanks so much for watching. Be really excited on Friday. That'll be the day where Michigan is getting ready to take on Auburn in the Sweet 16. We'll be with you then. Can't wait. See you over on the Maize and Blue review between now and then. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care, and we'll